What's going on, everybody? Ram Dean with you here in our downtown studios, and this is another edition of Fight News Now Extra. Shortly, my good friend Robin Black will join me to discuss some of the sport's biggest stories. In the news today, we get an update on Jon Jones' stint in rehab. Nick Diaz brings in some heavy hitters for his preparations for Anderson Silva. A former Olympian gets another crack at the title, and Uriah Hall finally gets an opponent. It appears that light heavyweight champion Jon Jones now has a handle on his supposed drug dependency, as he only spent one night in a rehab facility. Jones' mother Camilla says her son will further investigate the subject and is happy with the steps he is taking to get himself clean. In one of the most exciting matchups in recent history, Nick Diaz is set to face off with former middleweight champion Anderson Silva on January 31st in Las Vegas, Nevada at the famed MGM. To help the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt prepare for the celebrated striker, Diaz has acquired the services of Glory champions Joe Schilling and Artem Levin. Schilling feels that Levin's head movement is similar to the Brazilian's and will serve the former Strikeforce champion well. 12-6 Ron Stallings steps in on 1 week's notice to face off with Uriah Hall. The two will meet in Boston at this weekend's Fight Night card that will feature Conor McGregor taking on Dennis Seaver. Olympic gold medalist Henry Cejudo will have another opportunity at flyweight when he squares off with former 125-pound title challenger Chris Cariaso on March 14th when the UFC returns to Texas for UFC 185. Cejudo was successful in his UFC debut, defeating Dustin Kimura by decision in December. Also on the card, Alistair Overeem takes on Roy Nelson, and Rafael Dos Anjos battles Anthony Pettis for the lightweight title. And just a reminder to tune into Fight Network on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern to catch a special one-hour preview of UFC Fight Night McGregor vs. Seaver. Join John Pollock, Robin Black, and myself as we look ahead to all the action in Boston. And following the preview show, keep it locked to Fight Network as we bring you the live prelims starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. Happy to be joined by Mr. Robin Black, Nick Diaz, Anderson Silva, coming up January 31st. Outstanding stuff. Nick Diaz, we all know that he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but a lot of people don't realize what type of striker this is. Obviously taking the right steps to ensure victory over Anderson Silva, bringing these two Glory champions. But what type of striker is Nick Diaz?
Nick Diaz is a very, very different striker for mixed martial arts. He likes to fight at range. He fights from southpaw. And, what's the words that you hear people, they're always a volume striker. What does that mean? It means he throws lots and lots and lots of punches. He doesn't throw with power all the time. He just wants to put him on your chin. The busier he is offensively, the harder it is for you to be busy offensively. Guys who throw one or two, guys will block or slip and counter. He's throwing 30, 40, 50, slapping you around, stepping out at distance. Very different, very old school in his approach. There's a great article on the internet, and I'm so sorry I forget the author's name, but he wrote an article comparing Nick Diaz to those old school boxers with the mustaches, fights like this. Great article. Check it out.
The thing about Nick Diaz is you say that, a lot of people accuse him of not, his punches don't have enough oomph. I think he picks his punches. He picks the right opportunities to throw those power punches. He's constantly crowding his opponent. Frank Shamrock said it. He goes, you just can't think.
Exactly.
Because there's so many punches coming at you, and then when Nick Diaz has you confused and dazed, that's when he starts throwing in the power punches.
Yeah, and it is fun to watch. Also, thank you for not bringing up Jon Jones in this conversation. This is far more exciting, isn't it? A great matchup between elite fighters instead of some guy who may or may not be in rehab. This is so much more fun. But Nick Diaz, the definitive example of what you just described is you'll watch him lots of times, tap, 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 rip to the body. And when he does, he picks that spot. And when he does it, he hurts you badly. And Frank nailed it. Imagine you're waiting for a moment to counter. You're waiting for a moment to get off and get your thing going. And instead, the whole time, it's just defensive mode. And men and women fight anaerobically very often. So they will train 30 seconds on hard, 30 seconds of recovery. And they'll fight that way. Hard, 30 seconds, movement, recover. Nick Diaz fights aerobically. This is a guy who runs marathons, does Ironman triathlons, all of that kind of stuff. So his aerobic system is so good. Ask him to just throw punches nonstop for 25 minutes. It's no problem. Yeah, he can do it.
Exactly. But again, you look at this fight with Anderson Silva, and a lot of people say, well, Nick Diaz has never faced a striker the level of Anderson Silva. Has he faced a guy that has that type of firepower? And the only guy I can think of is Paul Daly. And we saw how that
what an awesome round.
that first round between Paul Daly and Nick Diaz, one of the most exciting in mixed martial arts. I want to switch focus to the 125-pound division. Henry Cejudo. Right now, when we look at the flyweight class, it seems like, okay, if you can get yourself into the 125-pound division, get yourself a couple of victories, you could be fighting for the title sooner rather than later. We talked to Boris Sherbatov and Yanni Sherbatov about that, and the goal is to get to the UFC because they know they get themselves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 victories in the UFC. You're fighting for a title opposed to fighting at 185 pounds, which really could take you years and years.
Yeah, people might not necessarily know who the Sherbatovs are, but Yanni Sherbatov is a very high-level 125 prospect. Boris is very talented in around 55. When these young guys were making their strategy of how to go and the shortest and easiest route to a title, it's like, well, one of us is going to fight. Well, 125, we can get you there quick. I'll manage you. Whereas on the other hand, 55, it's crazy. So they selected the athletic brother who had the shortest route. Very, very smart. But you're absolutely right. And we haven't really seen anybody at 125 with that level of wrestling. You know, you got Jorgensen, you got some good solid wrestlers, but not Olympic level Cejudo wrestling.
However, a lot of people would say all you have to do is look back a couple of weeks and see the fight between Daniel Cormier and John Jones. Daniel Cormier was the captain of the Olympic wrestling team. This is not wrestling. It's mixed martial arts, and we've seen the strides that the entire sport has made to ensure that, okay, we stop. If we're not a wrestler, we learn how to stop the takedown, and if we do get taken down, we get back up.
Yeah. When you go and you're looking at, we're trying to find a new opponent, a new contender at 125, just know this. Nobody's going to beat Demetrius Johnson for a while. Know that. We don't need to convince you that this fight is winnable. You need to watch Demetrius Johnson fights because he's so incredibly talented, because it's so amazing the way he applies his trade. That's why you got to watch him fight. It don't matter who they throw at him. He's going to beat him for the next couple of years.
Coming up at the end of the month, Nick Diaz taking on Anderson Silva. We are going to be watching. We're going to be waiting. We know it's going to be one of the best fights of the year.
Post-fight show here, too.
Right here. That's it for us. Don't go anywhere. More Fight News Now Extra still coming your way.